So, if you're wrestling with a really high stakes decision, maybe you're prepping for a crucial board meeting, or your whole company strategy has just hit a wall,
Right.
you know that getting truly high caliber executive advice it's almost impossible to find. You either pay a fortune for a consultant or you spend years reading every book out there.
You do, and that's the core problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
The wisdom of the world's elite is locked behind these two huge walls: cost and time. You want the best possible advice, the stuff that really drove massive success, but filtering all that noise is lifetime's work.
And that is exactly why we wanted to do this deep dive into sources describing a service called Vibe CEO.
Hmm.
The claim is, well, it's audacious, a shortcut to strategic genius. Our mission today is to really unpack how this platform says it can deliver personalized advice, advice that's extracted directly from the world's most successful executives.
Right.
I mean, can you really just chat with an AI and get a CEO-level advisory session?
That is the central promise that frames this whole thing. The sources claim you can interact with an AI that's been specifically trained on the distilled wisdom of 15 top CEOs. So this isn't just a generic language model.
No.
It's a focused knowledge base that's designed to replicate how these top-tier executives actually think.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because the nuts and bolts really matter. Let's start there. When they say AI-powered advisory platform, what are we actually talking about? Is it just, scraping quotes and spitting them back out?
We have to assume it's more than that, given what they're claiming. To be useful as an advisory service, it has to go way beyond just summarizing things.
Okay.
What we're likely looking at is a custom-trained model. It's been fed a huge amount of text, all attributable, that doesn't just know what these leaders did, but tries to model why they did it.
So the thinking behind the action.
Exactly. Their philosophies, their operating principles. But what's really fascinating here is the sheer complexity of trying to synthesize the wisdom of 15 very different leaders into one coherent voice.
That immediately raises a huge challenge, right? If you're training an AI on 15 distinct, sometimes contradictory approaches to business, how does it even merge them?
Yeah.
How do you blend, say, the maniacal perfectionism of one CEO with the move fast and break things philosophy of another?
That's the key. Yeah. The whole thing works or fails based on its ability to handle that cognitive dissonance. It can't just give you the average of their advice.
Right.
It has to contextualize it. It needs to know which philosophy to apply to your specific business stage or your specific crisis.
And to ground this in reality, the sources actually give us some names that were central to the training.
They do.
And that tells you a lot about the kind of strategic thinking they're aiming for.
Absolutely. The big ones they name are Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk.
Wow.
Just hearing those three names tells you this is all going to be centered around innovation, long-term disruption, and very rapid, often unconventional execution.
Let's just stay on the tension there for a second. Jobs was known for this intense focus. I'm paraphrasing, but, saying no to 1,000 things.
Mm-hmm.
Bezos built the everything store. Musk is trying to get us to Mars. How does an AI possibly reconcile a philosophy of super narrow, perfect product focus with one of infinite expansion?
This is the intellectual crunch point. And
Well-
since you brought it up, the day one mentality from Bezos, it's really the core of his philosophy. It's
Yeah.
all about avoiding stagnation by acting like a startup with that same urgency and willingness to experiment.
That urgency is so key. So if a user asks, should I acquire this smaller competitor? The AI has to weigh Jobs' focus
Which would say, does this make our core product more perfect?
against the Bezos day one approach, which might ask, does this open up a new scalable market, even if it's a distraction right now?
Precisely. The quality of that training data suggests the system is built to navigate those high-stakes trade-offs. The immediate value prop for anyone listening is clear. You get access to these strategies, synthesized and contextualized for you, without needing to hire an expensive consultant.
Or spend years building up a network.
Exactly. It's an attempt to democratize truly elite business insight.
I like that phrase, democratizing elite insight. It's a knowledge shortcut, but a thoughtful one. Okay, so moving from the who these very disruptive CEOs, let's pivot to the what.
Okay.
I mean, having 100,000 pages of their journals is useless if it's just a giant data dump. How is this wisdom actually organized so that you or I can actually use it?
And that organizational structure is maybe the most critical piece for it to be useful. The sources stress that the platform gives you structured insights. They've cataloged all this wisdom into 3 clear categories.
So you don't get overwhelmed.
Right. It guides you. and it ensures you're covered on the most critical executive functions.
Let's get into those three pillars of the Vibe CEO knowledge base because they really are the core curriculum of high-level management. The first pillar is leadership philosophy.
This is foundational. It's the how and the why. These leaders motivate their teams, how they define culture, how they set a vision.
And again, you see the tension. Jobs was, well, notorious for his intensity and his demand for perfection.
Whereas Bezos was famous for requiring those detailed 6-page narrative memos before any meeting. He prioritized deep, clear writing over a flashy presentation.
So if I asked the AI, how do I communicate a huge strategy shift to my 500-person team?
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, drawing from Jobs, it might suggest a very focused, emotionally charged presentation centered on a single product vision.
Okay.
But drawing from Bezos, it might recommend an internal mandate. It might say, have your team submit long-form documents detailing how this shift directly impacts the customer, forcing deep thinking over just, performance.
So the synthesized answer would probably weigh both of those based on my context.
Exactly. Based on your team's size, the complexity of the shift. That's the value of the structure.
Okay, that makes sense. The second pillar they detail is crisis management. This is the advice you need when things go wrong.
This is where the rubber meets the road, for sure. How do you pivot when you're facing market volatility, a supply chain disaster, a PR nightmare?
And the comparison between the CEOs they name is, again, really compelling.
It is. Musk's playbook often involves very aggressive public engagement, sometimes controversial, highly personal responses.
Whereas a strategy derived from Bezos might be totally different. It would probably focus on using the crisis to reinforce a long-term customer principle, like absorbing costs to maintain trust.
Right. So if your company has a product recall, the AI has to figure out if your situation calls for a rapid, aggressive public pivot, the Musk approach, or a quieter customer-first plan that emphasizes long-term trust, the Bezos approach.
It's for tactical resilience.
And speed.
Okay, and finally, the third pillar is strategic planning. This is market entry, disruption, scaling. All the stuff that made these CEOs icons.
This is the long game. And this is where that tension between focus and expansion really shows up. Jobs would often kill successful product lines just to make sure all resources went to the next big thing.
Which is such a rare level of strategic discipline.
It is. Meanwhile, Bezos' entire strategy has been about leveraging early advantages, like logistics, to jump into adjacent markets. That's how we got the Amazon ecosystem we see today.
So for someone planning the next 5 years, the AI has to weigh that kind of radical pruning versus relentless expansion.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture for our listeners, these three areas, leadership, crisis, and strategy, they really represent the core challenges for any executive.
Right.
By structuring the AI's knowledge around these pillars, the service ensures the data is not just comprehensive, but also actionable. It's designed to answer the really big questions.
It's a very robust framework. But, generalized wisdom is one thing. Making it relevant to my specific sales slump or my hiring crisis is another. That brings us to personalization. The sources really hammer this point. Personalized insights.
Yes. This is where it claims to be a real advisory platform, not just a smart search engine. You input your specific context, a merger, a tech pivot, and the system synthesizes a recommendation based on the collective experience of the 15 CEOs, but tailored to you.
But wait a minute, if the advice is so tailored and it's blending these distinct personalities, how do I trust it? How do I know if I'm getting the best of Jobs or, the worst of Musk? That feels like a potential credibility problem.
That's the nuance the platform tries to solve with accountability. The personalized insights, the sources claim, come with proper CEO attribution and context.
Ah, okay.
This is a huge feature for building trust. It means you don't just get an answer, you get the framework behind the answer.
So the AI might actually say something like, based on your cash position, this recommendation aligns most closely with the philosophy of Jeff Bezos, who prioritized long-term dominance because, and then explain why.
Exactly. It shows its work. And it raises a really important question. How important is that attribution really? If the AI can genuinely synthesize the right answer for your business, does the CEO's name still matter?
That's a great question.
The platform seems to believe that the attribution helps you understand the philosophical DNA of the advice, whether it's coming from a design-first ethos like Jobs or a capital-intensive scale mentality like Bezos.
I see. It's about letting you, the user, trace the lineage of the recommendation. This whole framework is positioned as the gateway to the future of executive advisory services, which seems to imply it should be pretty accessible.
And that accessibility is everything for getting people to adopt it.
Yeah.
They want you to test it firsthand, which is why they've lowered the barrier to entry so much. They're clearly confident in the product.
According to our sources, they make it incredibly easy to get started for anyone who wants to test this CEO-level advice on their own business problems. There's a 7-day unlimited free trial, and they make a point of saying no credit card required to start. That's a pretty low-friction way to see if the distilled wisdom of Jobs, Bezos, and Musk can actually help you tomorrow morning.
It's an investment they're making to prove that the core idea, the synthesis, actually works.
So let's wrap this up. What does this deep dive really mean? I think the key takeaway is this. Vibe CEO is presenting a high-tech shortcut to top-tier executive wisdom. It's powered by an AI trained on 15 of the most successful CEOs.
Including those incredibly distinct examples like Jobs, Bezos, and Musk.
Right. And all that wisdom is meticulously structured into those 3 highly relevant domains: leadership philosophy, crisis management, and strategic planning.
It means that sophisticated strategic thinking is being abstracted and almost modularized. We're talking about leasing the distilled experience of industry titans to accelerate your own decision-making. It could fundamentally change how executives and entrepreneurs get guidance.
It's a fascinating endeavor, both technologically and philosophically. But let's leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. If this AI platform can accurately attribute and contextualize advice from leaders as different as Steve Jobs, who wanted total control, and Jeff Bezos, who favored decentralized teams, and then it delivers that insight tailored perfectly to your unique problem, does the individual CEO's name become more or less important than the distilled, structured insight itself? Should you ultimately trust the wisdom the AI has synthesized, or the attribution that gives that wisdom its famous historical weight? Think about that.